Hello guys and welcome to class.
Tara mo na yan!
Teacher Krishna here and we are working on the biology subject as well as in class number 2. Let's start with our presentation and here we have our topic and ending mind. The topic for today is lesson number 1, the characteristics of cells. And the ending mind is the following. Explain the main structures and characteristics that cells possess among living things and sequence the most relevant historical events from the proposition of the cells theory. Alright, so let's continue. And here you have a summary of the activities that you need to complete. So first of all, you need to read lesson number 1 and make a graphic organizer that states the main characteristics that are shared among the cells of living organisms. And then you are going to share your thoughts during the live session. All right. So let's continue. There you go. And here you have an example of the graphic organizer. So remember that you need to compare the main characteristics that cells share among different organisms, right? Then let's continue. And please make sure to finish on time so you don't have a lot of homework and end up like this guy right here. Alright, so let's just jump into it. So what is a cell? At first, let's celebrate about knowing what a cell is. A cell is the smallest functional and structural unit of all living organisms. And an organism is any living thing that carries out its own life processes. And Robert Hooke was the first to describe cells. He looked at the bark of a cork tree under a microscope. So, well, first of all, we need to analyze that there are some parts that are even smaller than a cell, which are atoms. So around the globe and the universe, there are different atoms such as oxygen atoms, hydrogen atoms, carbon atoms, etc. But what happens is that those atoms start bonding together and they start forming several structures. But what happens is that when the atoms actually bond together and form a cell, that's when we can consider it alive, let's say, once a cell is formed. Because, atoms are going to form different shapes and they are going to form different structures, but only the cells are the ones that we consider that are alive. For example, let's compare a rock. A rock is made of atoms, right? But a rock is not alive. On the other hand, let's compare it to a mouse. So a mouse is composed of cells. That's why it is alive. We humans are composed of cells as well. Right, and what are most cells small? Or why are most cells small? I'm sorry. Cells are small because their size is limited by their outer surface area. If cells get too large, they cannot take in enough nutrients or get rid of enough wastes. The surface area to volume ratio of a cell is the ratio of the outer surface to the cell's volume. The smaller the cell, the greater is this ratio, right? And alright, so Cell Hall of Fame. What is the cell theory? So the cell theory lists 3 basic characteristics of all cells in organisms. All organisms are made up of 1 or more cells. The cell is the basic unit of all organisms, and also all cells come from existing cells. So it's pretty much related to what I was telling you before. If something is considered alive, for sure that thing is made up of cells. And the cells have this capacity of reproducing and actually producing more cells. But what happens is that cells also have a limited lifetime. So like at some point, let's talk about a chicken. So a chicken is going to grow old and at the end it is going to die. So its cells are going to die as well. But this chicken is going to, leave some chicken and some other chicken in the world that are going to continue with this cycle. So it's going and coming back, a cycle of life and death. But that's just the way life is. All right, we continue with the cell theory. Anton van Leeuwenhoek was the first to describe living cells. Matthias Sladen concluded that all plants are made of cells. Right. So this is Anton van Leeuwenhoek when he noticed his experiments actually worked.
Yeah, boy.
All right, so let's continue. We also have the Theodore Strand determined that all animal tissue are made of cells. In Rudolf Virchow proposed that cells could form only from the division of other cells. And we have that organisms made up of just one cell are called unicellular organisms. The single cell must carry out of all organisms' life functions. Organisms made up of more than one cell are called multicellular organisms. So, let me give you some examples of unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. So, unicellular organisms, remember, just one cell. They can be, for example, bacteria, because what is going to happen right there is that we have a single cell, that is a bacteria, and at some point it can even reproduce, or it can divide and it can produce more bacteria that are going to be pretty much the same. But it will never combine with others in order to produce an organism, which in this case will be like a multicellular organism. Multicellular organisms have many cells and many types of cells that are specifically specialized for certain activities. Let's talk about humans and let's talk about our body functions. So we have many types of cells. For example, we have the cells of our skin. So you can notice that they are a little bit, let's say, less hard or softer cells than others. They are a little bit elastic because you can, take some piece of your skin and move it a little bit. It's flexible. Also, all this layer of skin that we have, or all this layer of outer cells that we have, they have to be pretty resistant because they have to protect you from the outside world. They have to protect your organs from the outside world. So that is one type of cells that we have around our body. Also, let's talk about the cells of our bones. They are way harder than the ones from our skin, but they are still cells. What happens is that since they are specialized in another function, which will be pretty much resisting the weight of all of your body, as well as protecting your organs from your body. Let's talk about the ribs, for example, that you have them right here around your chest. They are protecting your heart, your lungs, also your esophagus, your stomach, which are pretty crucial organs in your body. And they are still cells, but they are specialized in another thing. That's why we are called multicellular organisms. How about other multicellular organisms? We can talk about cats, dogs, giraffes, elephants, etc. There are much more. And plants, of course. Plants are made of many different cells around. And the cells of multicellular organisms have specialized functions. Oh, well, that's what I was telling you just now. All right, so unfortunately, we are not at the school because I really love doing this practice with students because we have some microscopes in which we can place some samples of feathers. We can add leaves, or we can use many other materials as samples. But in the microscopes, when you take a look at the lens, if the sample is properly positioned, you are going to take a look at something like this. You're going to take a look at it as several bags that you can see inside, or several divisions, and each one of those divisions are cells. But again, when cells start bonding together, they are going to form a multicellular organism. And let's analyze it a little bit right over here. We can see that we have a letter A right here at the top, which is a sample from one of the stems from this root that you have right there. So that'll be pretty much about it. Probably later on, if you get back to the school, we can make some practice with the microscopes because it's pretty nice. It truly opens your eyes to a whole new world. All right, so let's continue. What parts do all cells have in common? This is very helpful for your diagram or your graphic organizer. So please make sure to pay a lot of attention here. So all cells have some structures in common. A cell membrane is a protective layer that covers a cell's surface and controls material moving into and out of the cell. Let's imagine that right over here, this is a cell, supposedly. It's my alcohol. So the plastic is going to be the cell membrane. So it is going to storage all of the water or all of the components inside of the cell. And of course, through this plastic, some materials can come out and some other materials can come inside. They also have the cytoplasm. It's a region inside the cell that includes the fluid and all the organelles except for the nucleus. So, in this case, again, this liquid or the alcohol inside will be somewhat like the cytoplasm. So, in the cytoplasm, all of the organelles are going to be floating around. And there is something else that is called a cytoskeleton that is going to help all of the organelles to stay in their appropriate position. Also, an organelle is a small body in the cytoplasm that is specialized to perform a specific function. Later on, we are going to learn a little bit more about the organelles, but we have the nucleus, the nucleolus, and the Golgi apparatus. We have the mitochondria, and much more. But we are going to learn about them later. We have the nucleus, which is a membrane bound organelle that contains DNA. The nucleus is extremely important, and a lot of people say that the nucleus is like our brain because it controls the functions of the cells around. It tells the cell how to act. So DNA, or deoxyriboic acid, is genetic material that provides instructions for all cell processes. Well, I think I'm speaking ahead. Don't remember this was here, so I explained it before, so I know you. So that's so fine. So here we have a cell. So how many parts of a cell can you name? So we're going to stay with the ones that we just saw. So the cell membrane will be this one right over here, like what is recovering all of the cell around. We also have the cytoplasm, which is like the sort of water that you can see around. We also have the nucleus, which is the central part, which is like this little ball that you can see right there. And the organelles are going to be the ones that you see around, like this. Well, these ones are called back walls. We also have the endoplasmatic reticulum, which is what is around the nucleus. And we have many more around, okay? So, pretty much those are organelles, cytoplasm, nucleus, and membrane. Let's continue. So we have prokaryotes are single-celled organisms that do not have a nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. Interesting. In prokaryotes, DNA is in the cytoplasm. They have organelles without cell membranes called ribosomes. And some have a hair-like structure called flagella that help them move. And on the other hand, we have eukaryotes. And they are organisms made up of cells that contain DNA in a nucleus, membrane-bound organelles, and ribosomes. Animals, plants, protists, and fungi are eukaryotes. And most eukaryotes are multicellular, but some are unicellular. All right, so we're going to finish with our class right there. So see you in the live session, and thanks to the eukaryotic cells, we can have nowadays different organisms like the ones that you're going to see right now.